Welcome to Achieving Student Outcomes Through Cooperative Learning, Section 3, Part 1, 3D Model Lesson, Research Lesson. Now that we have walked through the elements of positive interdependence, we will work through a 3D lesson. Please remember we will adapt the directions to meet our remote learning environment. We will give the compelling why for the research lesson, give the subject matter directions, give the compelling why for the interpersonal skill inviting participation, build the T for interpersonal skill inviting participation, explain that you will be observing and show the form you will use, explain how you will handle group questions, explain how you will debrief and show the forms, act as an interactionist while observing and monitoring groups, and debrief the interpersonal skill and subject matter. You will have an opportunity to experience the 3D model yourselves. You will work in groups of 3 to review the research on cooperative learning. I will be modeling how I want you to present this in your classrooms. Watch what I do and take notes if you choose. You will experience the 3D model as an adult learner. Please do not role play as though you are 1st, 6th, or 9th graders. Just be yourselves. I will not be stopping along the way to point out where we are in the model or to explain why I am doing something. I will explain it in detail later when we dissect the process in the anatomy of a 3D lesson. At that time, we will go over the lesson piece by piece. If you are wondering about anything concerning the model as we go along, write down your questions. We will address them later. You will have the experience that students in your classroom will have when you are using the 3D model. While you participate, monitor your thoughts and feelings. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Pay attention to those two things. Notice how you react. See how each part of this model fits you as a learner. Later, I will ask you to describe and share your thoughts and feelings. Several times in my life, I have been in a position of having to substantiate something I have learned. My credibility has been questioned. I took a class once, and when I returned to my old school and told my colleagues what I had taken, they questioned me about whether it would really work in a school setting. I didn't have the facts to back up what I had learned. I felt foolish and uninformed. When you return to your school, someone may ask you about this course and question you about the viability of cooperative learning. Some teachers have had bad experiences with group work and connect those experiences to all of cooperative learning. They don't realize that there can be a big difference between structured cooperative learning, like we learn to do in this course, and simple group work. Therefore, in this next lesson, you are going to learn about the research on cooperative learning so that you will be informed. You will know what the researchers have found about the viability of cooperative learning. Note, this type of compelling why is known as using the give an example way of building the why. It is important that for this activity you are using the Zoom breakout room so you can collaborate. Even if this activity is not scheduled on your Zoom day with your instructor, it is to your benefit to schedule a Zoom breakout room time for you to work together. We will go through the directions in chunks so it is not overwhelming. First, we will form triads. Ideally, you will work with partners who have not been together before. In your groups, choose a reporter who will do some note-taking and reporting during the debriefing. Choose a messenger who will help access things for the group. Choose a timekeeper who will help you keep track of time so you can use it wisely. Messengers, when I'm finished going over the directions, you will review a list of statements about the benefits of cooperative learning. You will then distribute the statements to group members evenly. When you each get your statements, individually read them so that you can summarize them to your group members. You can jot down notes if that helps you. You might find it helpful to write a one-sentence summary statement about each one. Timekeepers, you will budget 5 minutes for this part of the activity. Then, each person will summarize the content of their research statements to the others. You may provide the written statements so others can read them as you explain them. You may have seen a pattern or connection among statements that you could point out to others. When each person has finished, you will decide together how you could organize the quotes into categories, which is the analysis process. Look for ways that you can connect them through patterns or themes. When you have finished, open up the editable Google Doc assigned to your group. With each person giving input, utilize the Google Doc to show your organization of the research. When the document is finished, each person in your group will sign the Google Doc, indicating that he or she is in agreement with its content. If you each add a particular part to the Google Doc, sign your name near the area that represents your contribution. Make sure everyone in the group can explain the content of the Google Doc, because I will pick a member at random to explain the poster to the rest of the class. Timekeepers, you have 35 minutes for this activity. Remember the acronym PALS, the group norms we want students to demonstrate during group work. For today's lesson, we want to focus on a variation of the P in the PALS acronym, and that is the interpersonal skill of inviting participation. If we want a behavior, we have to teach a behavior. We can't assume students know what our demand for a specific behavior means, or that they will automatically have the appropriate behavior. We are now going to go through a series of questions that will lead to the compelling why for this activity. How many of you have ever been in a group, on a team, part of a staff, or on a committee where people did not invite others to participate? Tell me what that kind of teamwork is like for you. What happens in the group? What does it feel like? Therefore, negative things can happen and negative feelings can occur. Let's look at the other side. How many have ever been in a group, on a team, part of a staff, or on a committee where people did invite others to participate? What was that like? What happened to the group, the product? What kinds of feelings were generated? Therefore, good things happened and good feelings were generated. We can all agree that it is important for groups to invite participation. Please go to Canvas Modules Section 3 Part 1 3D Model Lesson Research Lesson, where you will find an editable Google Doc to complete the T-chart. Let's get more specific about the interpersonal skill I want you to practice. This is called a T-chart, and we will be using T-charts in this course to list the specific behaviors involved in interpersonal skills. The lists will help students understand what is expected of them when they are learning an interpersonal skill. Once again, if we want a behavior, we have to teach the behavior. If someone asks me a question, I will likely respond with, "Someone in your group knows," because someone in your group usually knows the answer to your questions. I want group members to turn to each other for answers before they turn to the instructor. The instructor's job is to make yourself dispensable. If no one in your group knows the answer, I will answer it as a group question. A group question is any question that has been discussed in the group, is understood by every group member, and cannot be answered satisfactorily by anyone within the group. When there is a group question, students in the group raise their hands together. The teacher approaches the group and asks, "Is this a group question?" If all agree that it is, the teacher randomly chooses one group member to ask the question. If the spokesperson can articulate the question, it is answered by the teacher. If the spokesperson cannot state the question, the guidelines for a group question have not been met. The teacher turns it back to the group for further consideration. In other words, all members must understand the question before they ask the teacher for an answer. This is a form on which I will collect what I see and what I hear as I monitor your groups. Later, I will share my observations with you. Here is a form that covers your use of the interpersonal skill, inviting participation, that you will be filling out after the 3D lesson. I'm showing it to you now so that you, as a group, you are aware of the responses I will be looking for. Read through this form. We will also be debriefing the subject matter when you finish the lesson. Now is the time to start the research lesson. Remember that the activity directions are in the Google Doc. Please keep the activity directions available at all times. Your instructor will now send you to your break rooms. You have 35 minutes. Now that you are finished, we are going to reflect on rope. All right, so the time is up. We are now going to take a look at each poster and hear from a group representative. Your instructor will be selecting the person who will report, and when you are finished reporting, you're going to share your poster with the class in the Zoom conference. Now please turn to page 65, 3D Model Lesson Research Interpersonal Skill Debriefing. On the top half of page 65, write individual responses for the interpersonal skill debriefing only. When you answer number 2, describe what you actually heard and what behavior you saw in your groups. The key here is to be specific. What were the words you used? Rejoin your 3D lesson group, the group with whom you made your Google Doc posters. You will share with each other what you wrote on page 65. Recorder and reporters will take notes, and reporters, let's hear what the group wrote for number 2. What did you hear or see? Give us only one example as we go around the Zoom room. What did some of your groups write for number 3, where it would be important to invite participation? Now, your instructor will tell you what he or she observed about the interpersonal skill as he or she monitored your groups. Typical feedback that we have seen in the past is that the feedback needs to be to everybody. We need to be specific about what we heard, saw, and wrote on the observation form. And we want to give positives. In other words, we want to help each other learn what the skill is, not what it's not. So your instructor should have given you the positives in the debriefing, even if he or she heard negatives. We want to model what we want you to do rather than what we don't want you to do. So when teachers are first teaching a specific interpersonal skill and they don't hear or see all the ways students could be expressing the skill, they may often make up some expressions as though they heard them. They may pretend some fake ones off their debriefing form. Faking it gives students new at working on interpersonal skills more information about what they were expected to do. Later on, when students know what is expected, teachers should only report what they actually see and hear. Reporters, now tell us how your group ranked itself in terms of inviting participation in number 1, and give your rationale. Remember, when you teach the interpersonal skill, you want students to know the specific behaviors that describe the skill. Just because you taught it, that doesn't mean they have it. When you debrief, you are doing several things: setting goals, helping students learn about their behavior, and making students more conscious. In other words, when you are debriefing, you are still teaching what the skill really is. Now, let's go to the subject matter debriefing. Please respond individually to the subject matter debriefing on the bottom of page 65. You are focusing on your product, your Google Doc. You will go back to your breakout room where you will share your individual responses, and the recorders should be writing them down. Reporters, you will be telling us the levels of satisfaction you chose and the rationale for giving them to your group work. After the groups return from the Zoom breakout rooms, the reporters should be presenting. We are modeling here. This is an effort to help students create an internal standard by which to judge their own work. Reporters, how could your group have improved its product based on what other groups did? If your group was not able to finish, how far did you get? What did you come up with as an idea for your poster? If you had time to lay it out, what categories were you considering? What was going on in your group that caused you to not finish? It is okay that you didn't finish. The important thing is that you were working. We are glad to see that learning was going on. Give your group members a virtual high five. This is where we are stopping for this session. Please reflect on the 3D model that we have completed so you are comfortable with the process. We will continue this topic in our next session. As a reminder, please ensure that you have Assessment 2 finished before we get to the section of the course, Section 3, Part 4. That is where we will be doing our Expanding Expertise Exchange, and it is based on the information you gathered in Assessment 2. This concludes Section 3, Part 1, the 3D Model Lesson, Research Lesson. Please go to Canvas and ensure all activities from Section 3, Part 1, the Cooperative Learning 3D Model, are complete.